Now we're going to be tracking the mass as it moves through these frames, and the computer now knows that I'm skipping 10 frames each time, and there are 240 frames per second. So it knows how much time is passing between each frame, and it knows how large it is, so it should be able to compute things like speeds and accelerations. So to track an object, we're going to create a point mass, and we're going to be tracking this cart. So we need to choose a point on the cart that we're going to follow, and I'm going to choose this front wheel here. So I'm going to click on the center of the front wheel each time. And I'm holding down Shift as I do this. That's how I get the crosshairs. And I'm just finding the same point on the cart in each frame so that it knows exactly where it is. And I'm going to keep doing that all the way around. I'm using the front of the three white things at the base of the coaster. There we go. If it's hard to see, you can always zoom in on a particular frame. So there's the front. And because we're skipping 10 frames, it's not an enormous job to track these points. If we weren't, we'd have 10 times as many frames to track, and it would become quite a big task. Okay, so now we've tracked all the points. We can just have a look and see how that works. So here it goes, traveling down. We can see that it's moving further and further, and then it moves around the loop. Then it carries on up to the crest of that little hill. Okay, and so now we've tracked the object. The other thing that's useful, because we're going to be working with energies a little bit later on, is to know how massive this thing is. And it is about 0.1 kilograms. So I'm going to define, and here you say mass, by default it's 1 kilogram. But the coaster was, so I double clicked on that expression, and I'm going to change that to 0.1 because that was the mass of the little coaster that was traveling down that ramp. Okay, and now it knows the mass of that object. The next thing we're going to do is to add vectors here. So if you go up to this toolbar here, we have a velocity vector that we can add there. And now we can see a little arrow representing the velocity at all points. In fact, we can click on one of these to see exactly what the speed was at that point. Just like that. And if we look up here in this part of the screen, we can see that we have the x component of the speed, the y component of the speed, and we have a speed magnitude here. So that's how fast the object is traveling at that moment. We can also add acceleration vectors like this, and you can see that they're all really small and hard to see. So we can change the scale of those by stretching them. So we click this little, let me just do that again. Here's a little stretch vectors button. We can click that and we can stretch the acceleration by what, like 8 times? Oops, that was a bit too big. Make them a bit smaller. Let's make it 4 times. So now we have the acceleration vector at each point, and you can see that while it's going around the circle, it's pointing roughly towards the center of the circular arc that it's traveling in. And if we go back to the start here, let's just watch what happens. And in fact, I'm going to look at this trails. What it does is it automatically, in fact, I'll play it with the trails first. You can see its velocity increasing as it heads down, and then now it has a big acceleration towards the center of the circle, and then it goes up and it has a downwards acceleration towards the center of this circle that it travels around as it goes over there. Okay, becomes a bit of a mess when we have this long trail. So we can have no trail, and then we'll just see the acceleration. Let me just move that out the way. So if you do this, we'll just see the acceleration and the velocity at each individual point. And so now we've tracked that too. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just have a look at the things that we want to copy. So let me turn this long trail on again, and I'll play. And the first thing that you want to copy is something that shows that you've tracked all of this. So remember, just go to Edit, Copy Image, Main View to copy that. And then we want an image of the coaster at the bottom of the track. So here you can use these buttons to skip forward or back frames. So bottom of the track, that's probably the point that's closest to the bottom of the track. And then I'm going to remove these trails. And in this one I wanted specifically to see the acceleration and velocity vectors. And so what we'll do is we'll just color code those a little bit better. So we'll choose mass A and go down to velocities, and we'll change the color of the velocity to a yellow. And that one's become yellow. I'm also actually going to make it bold. So if we go back to mass A, velocities, footprint, and we make it bold. So that becomes a little bit more visible. We'll do the same with the acceleration. The red one doesn't show up so well, so I'm going to change the acceleration vector color to this light green. And I'm going to also make that one bold. Oops, that was the color again. Hold on, let me try that again. Track, mass A, acceleration, footprint, bold arrow. Okay, so now we can clearly see the acceleration and the velocity here. So now once again we can copy that in to our report. And the next thing we want to do is just read off this what the acceleration and velocity actually are at this point. And you'll need to do this for your own one because you will have tracked the points ever so slightly differently to what I've done. But all you need to do, in fact I'll do it for a different point so I don't give anything away. So up here at this point, the acceleration, I can click on it and I can read off here the acceleration magnitude at that moment is 13.64 meters per second squared. I can click on the velocity vector there and I can see that that's 2.668 meters per second. So I can find out exactly what the velocity and acceleration are at any moment. Okay,